media. Through the media.
Perhaps one of the most talked about and maybe sort of influential stories, I think, in the entertainment sphere this week. We're placing a spotlight on the Academy because on September 8th, the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences announced new representation and inclusion standards for Oscars eligibility in the Best Picture category as part of its Academy Aperture 2025 initiative. The standards are designed to encourage equitable representation on and off screen in order to better reflect the diversity of the movie-going audience. So again, to be clear, these are standards that movies must hit to be nominated for Best Picture. And I believe it's 2 of the 4 groups.
Right.
Is the overall. So it gets a little complicated. We have standard A, it's, I believe, A, B, C, and D, and you have to hit 2 of the 4 categories.
Right.
So category A is, or standard A, is on-screen representation, themes, and narrative. So to achieve standard A, the film must meet one of the following criteria. This is like, how wide can we make this? So, of these, we have our 3 ways they can make category A. They only have to meet 1. So, A1 is lead or significant supporting actors, meaning at least one of the lead actors or significant supporting actors is from an underrepresented racial or ethnic group, including Asian, Hispanic or Latinx, Black, African American, Indigenous, Native American, Alaskan Native, Middle Eastern, North African, Native Hawaiian, or Pacific Islander, or another underrepresented race or ethnicity. That's A1. One of your main actors from an underrepresented racial group. Your second point, your general ensemble cast. So at least 30% of actors in secondary and more minor roles are from at least 2 of the following underrepresented groups. So at least 30% are women of a racial or ethnic minority group from the LGBTQ plus community, or people with cognitive or physical disabilities, or who are deaf or hard of hearing. A3, the main storyline or subject matter. So the main storyline, theme, or narrative of the film is centered on an underrepresented group. That would be women, racial or ethnic group, LGBTQ+, or people with cognitive or physical disabilities, or who are deaf or hard of hearing. So one of those 3 to hit that main point. They really made this difficult.
Yeah, they have. Now,
they made it very easy, but very complicated.
I mean, yeah, like I was saying, you would have to. Let me go back. You would have to go out of your way to not be able to qualify in this. Like I said, if your main cast is all white and there's not a minority in there at all, no Asian, Hispanic at all, and whatnot, you don't qualify for A1. So let's move on to A2. At least 30% of all the actors in the secondary, let's say your main characters are all white, but okay, what about your co-stars, your secondary characters? I
don't know. I will say I can think of plenty of like period piece films that are primarily about able-bodied straight white men. Like I will say, in a lot of ways, I think this category might be one of the least hit.
You mean A1?
I mean A in general, because I do think they're like representation. Well, no, but that's not true, because representation behind the camera is just as bad.
Right.
But I do feel like it's a very broad way to just be like, maybe don't make a movie about all straight white able-bodied dudes, but
well, not necessarily.
Movies are about straight white able-bodied dudes. Like,
from what I understand, not necessarily what the movie is about, but just the actor themselves. Like if they have to be a member of one of these groups. I mean, like, the movie could be about a straight white male, but if the actor himself is gay, then I think that's a check. From what I understand, and like standards, and then moving on to like standards B, which and I won't go through the whole thing because it kind of repeats a lot of the points, but at least 2 of the following. I'm sorry, B1, creative leaderships and department heads. At least so 2 of the following.
Creative leadership and project team is sort of your main group, and they have to meet one of those criteria.
Right. See, casting directors, cinematographer, composers, costume designers, directors, editors, hairstylists, makeup artists, producers, production designers, set decorators, sound, VFX supervisors, or writer are from the following underrepresented groups, like women, racial or ethnic, LGBTQ, people with cognitive or physical disabilities, or who are deaf or hard of hearing. So it says here, at least one of those positions must belong to the following underrepresented racial group. One of those positions. So, I mean, in Hollywood, from what I understand, I'm like, maybe like I said, maybe the producer is straight, but maybe the sound person isn't, or maybe
no. Again, it's complicated because I feel like they actually tried to make it as broad as possible.
Right.
Like at the end of the day, it's like, oh, really? It's like, okay, to have someone in some facet of your behind the scenes, just again, not being essentially
it would be tough. I mean, even if I was to go to like stereotypes, like hairstylist or makeup artists, I mean, 9 times out of 10, it's probably going to be a woman or somebody in the LGBTQ community. So it's I mean, that's just, if I was just to play up on stereotypes, that's probably a thing that's likely to happen. Like I said, you would have to be a producer that's going out of your way. It's like, I don't want the makeup person to be this. I don't want the sound guy to be that, or whatever. You would have to go out of your way to avoid some of these things. So to fall into some of these categories is pretty easy. Going into to B2, let's see, other key roles, at least 6 other crew / team and technical. If I'm on the right graphic, let me make sure I'm on the right. Let me fade that in. Yeah. Let's see, technical positions. Excluding production assistants are from an underrepresented racial or ethnic group. These positions included but are not limited to first aid, gaffer, script supervisor, etc. And in B3, overall crew composition, at least 30% of the film crew is from the following underrepresented group: women, racial or ethnic group, LGBT community, people with cognitive physical disability, as we've mentioned before, deaf or hard of hearing. And that's B. So
I mean, it does, you're right. It does just start getting like, if you've ever been on a major film set, like your first AD, your second AD, your gaffers, your makeup, it's like the idea that at least one of them
won't be something like I'm black on my grandmother's side and whatever something. That's
where it does start getting weird to me. Of like, do you have to like sit down with like all your gaffers? And it's like, so is anyone here?
Tell me about your Mima.
Bisexual? We'll take bisexual. Like what?
It's like you're auditioning to I'm uncomfortable. I was told you legally could not ask me these questions or something like that, right? Like I thought the Constitution meant you couldn't ask these questions. But it's not about asking those questions in an audition. It's about when I guess an auditor comes out from the Oscars, like let's make sure that you didn't discriminate against anybody. But what's the standard C? I have that graphic up right now.
Standard C, I think actually for me personally is like the most sort of this is
standard C is what industry access and opportunities.
Yes. So to achieve this one, you actually have to hit both of the criteria. So that's a paid apprenticeship and internship opportunity. So the film's distribution or financing company has paid apprenticeships or internships that are from the following any of those underrepresented groups we discuss. So like an ongoing paid apprenticeship or internship, inclusive of underrepresented groups, including racial or ethnic groups, for production development, physical production, post, music, visual effects, acquisition, business affairs, et cetera, et cetera. And then you are also talking, having at least 2 interns or apprentices from the underrepresented groups in those departments, in those apprenticeships, as well as having training opportunities and skill development. So that means the film's production, this is point B, that the film's production, distribution, and or financing company offers training or work opportunities for below the line development to people from the following underrepresented groups.
Women,
you know what those groups are. Yeah. I think that's actually super important. The idea of like, what's your outreach look like? Are you offering a door to people who might not have an in to the industry, who might not have had, it's getting beyond the symptoms and to the actual like root of the problem of like socioeconomic issues of like, it's important to be offering, people from perhaps disadvantaged communities a chance to start getting their foot in the door.
Right.
Beyond like, oh, I'm a Coppola, so yeah, like, so I think that's awesome. So that is C.
I don't know if I overlooked it, but didn't it say you have to have like 2 or 3 of these boxes checked from each of these categories? Not necessarily saying that all you have to do is make sure you check one of these boxes and you're good, but I think you have to. You need
to, of each of the like A, B, C, D, you need to have 2 of them met.
Out of all the
all 4 like overarching categories. Academy, you made this too hard on us.
Right.
So out of the 4, like basically if you break it down as like cast, behind the scenes, internships, and I believe it's like audience development, you need to hit 2 of those 4. Right. So like for acting, that could be like you have a lead who's in one of those groups. You have 30% of your like smaller casts in those groups. For the internship, it's like 2 boxes you have to check. So the categories vary, but you have to check 2 of the categories.
Right. Okay. And the last one in category D is standards D. Representation in marketing, publicity, and distribution. The studios and or film company has multiple in-house senior executives from among the following underrepresented groups. Must include individuals from underrepresented racial or ethnic groups on their marketing, publicity, and or distribution team, women, racial, or ethnic groups. And then it goes down the list of all the different races and ethnicities, and then LGBTQ communities and people with physical disabilities. All categories other than Best Picture will be held to their current eligibility requirements. Films in the specialty feature categories, animated feature films, documentary features, international feature films submitted for Best Picture / general entry consideration will be addressed separately. And that's all the standards from
that's a lot of words.
Yeah. So it covered a lot of ground.
Okay. Have a couple not straight white guys in there, maybe.
Yeah.
Kind of all we're really, and it probably is. I don't know. What do you think about this? Like, I feel like normally I'm so like, yes, affirmative action. Let's like fight against sort of the natural bias of stuff. And this sits a little wrong with me. And I don't know if I'm the only one.
I mean, the only thing that I kept hearing about was people were trying to, when they were doing like a pushback against it, they were making an example like the movie. I think there was an article that said that the movie 1917 would not have qualified for this, which
yes,
they
still could have. You just didn't hit box A.
You just didn't hit box A, but yeah, exactly. But A2 and A3, you definitely did. So they another article came out in defense and said, no, that's incorrect. It absolutely does qualify, and it broke down the reasons why. It's
even if you're going to make a movie entirely about straight, cis, able-bodied white guys.
Yeah.
Fine. Just have...
there's B. We
get
can move.
Anyone behind the camera. Get anyone,
right, exactly.
Opportunities to people who want to be behind the camera. Give, people on your marketing team. Like, that's all they're asking for. And that's maybe part of the issue, that it's so many words to make it as bare minimum as possible.
Yeah,
it's like...
I feel like it covered, like you said, it's a lot of words. I feel like it covered. I feel like they did it on purpose. Like we were talking about before we started. I think that this was more about just putting a, hey, look what we're making progress. We're being progressive kind of a thing, but really technically nothing changed because they might as well have had a category. If you inhale oxygen and exhale carbon monoxide, you're qualified for an Oscar. I think they purposely got their lawyers together and said, what are the standards that every movie pretty much have been meeting anyway, and make sure that it's all covered, and just so we can put something out there to say that we're doing something. Not to say that they're being two-faced on their reasons behind it. This is probably a good thing to let you know that this is where the line is, even though nobody can really break it or cross it.
It just feels like a Band-Aid over a lot of other issues for me. So to release this is like, here it is, our inclusivity standards. It's like, right, but like that wasn't our issue. Our issue was there were a ton of performances by like people in these groups that never got nominated, that never got recognized. Like the whole like Oscars so white hashtag was not saying, and not that there aren't diversity issues in the film industry, there 100% are, but the actual complaint that I think the Oscars should have been addressing is, what are we doing to make sure diverse films are getting recognition? Right. It's also not, and again, this is bare minimum, so like, who cares? But it's also not the Oscars' job to tell
Hollywood or the producers?
To tell the filmmakers, to tell the producers, to tell the film studios what they can and can't do. It's I don't feel.
I think it was. I think it was both.
It was a little like a weird, like, I know you're the Academy that oversees a lot of this stuff, but at the end of the day, I think putting sort of half-ass rules in place rather than working, it feels like a negative way to go about this, as opposed to going, how can we, like things like that internship program, how can we encourage more internship programs, more scholarships? How can we be lifting up films by, created and starring and worked on by minority groups that people might not be seeing, that even if they're not getting Oscar nominations, like as film lovers, how can we be lifting that up and making sure more people are seeing them? I think that's where their energy should have gone to, rather than being like, here are the rules. You got to follow the rules, even though the rules mean nothing.
If you want to get one of our awards, you got to do all the.
It's kind of icky.
I'm on both sides of it. I 100% agree with what you're saying. Hollywood itself needs to be more, be better with, their casting and things like that, and representation. That's true. But at the same time, the Academy being so old, and I think we talked about this before we started, that a lot of the members of the Academy have been there for years, and there was not that many minorities in the Academy and things like that. So even if a movie like, say, Malcolm X or Black Panther, whatever the movie is, were to come out, and the majority of your Academy people who are voting on what Oscars they could be up for, if they don't see themselves really in that movie represent, that's probably why you get a situation where the Oscars would be so white, because the Academy was so white. I mean, I wouldn't expect a person who's like 75 years old, a 75-year-old white guy, to really be impacted by Malcolm X as probably maybe as I would have, or my grandfather or my father would have been if they were a critic. Not to say that a film critic, just because you're white, can't assess a black film or Hispanic film or an LGBTQ film with the same standards that you put on other films, but there's something to say. To me, there's something to say about our individual upbringings that might give a little bit. I understand what the director or that actor was trying to portray, because maybe I've experienced that thing. Not necessarily saying that I would give it the Oscar because of that, but I would like more people to have those backgrounds to bring that to the Academy. So I feel like it should happen on both ends. Yeah, Hollywood should work on their their issues, and the Academy should work on theirs. And I think there's a middle ground here somewhere. I feel.
But you feel like the issue is more the makeup of the Academy.
I feel like both. I feel like I feel like both are working on it, because I heard that the Academy,
what the Academy should actually be.
Well, I heard the Academy is diversifying. Not necessarily that they're taking away members of the Academy. They're including more directors and film writers of color and of different backgrounds, and including them into the Academy. The Academy has a lot of members anyway, but they're expanding it, and I think that's a good way to go.
I think the other thing that bothers me about that, because I'm always, again, it's like, why is this sitting wrong with me? Because I'm normally a person who's really excited to hear this kind of stuff's happening. Mm. And I think part of it is because it's such a nothing burger of a list of rules. It's
like what did it affect?
Yeah, you changed nothing, and you gave crappy people an excuse to start going, well, they just got hired because the Academy rules set, and you're giving people ammunition and causing and affecting no actual change, and that sucks.
On the YouTube streaming side of it, this is what I'm pissed off about. There are people who are out there who have channels out there who just like to excite and get people angry about something, like something to gripe about. There are people who won't even read the rules the way we just did and go through it and see what it all really means, and will just complain about A1 and be like, well, if you better make sure that at least one person, your movie could be all about a period piece that only had white people in it, but you better hire a group or somewhere in there, or otherwise you won't be qualified for not purposely overlooking the rest of the rules. Or even worse, there's probably other channels who 100% understand how it works and are purposely going to tell their audience, look, I guess this movie won't be qualified, because just to get clicks and to anger people and to further confuse people. So
we're a generation of headline skimmers. Yeah. I've tried to at least get better about acknowledging, like, I read an article. I mean, I read the headline, and I don't know more than that.
I mean, my friend just told me about it.
Yeah. I saw a tweet.
That's the way we get our information from. Oh, I don't have to click on this link. I already know that I'm outraged. That's just the way we are now.
If you like what you saw, make sure to subscribe to the channel, and please drop a like on this video. It really does help us. Also, don't forget you can turn on notifications so you don't miss a single review, react, why is that trending, or we got your mail.